Peace and love to the people, man. Peace and love, man. Listen, I'm gonna replay a couple of videos from brother Yara. Yara came at me, didn't invite me, came at me, talked about how I made up stuff, but we're gonna deal with it properly, right? We had a debate, a impromptu debate on Brother Barine over a year and a half ago, and he did a review on his channel. I'm going to put that video up, and we're going to watch it. We're going to watch the back and forth. We're going to make some stops. If y'all want to jump on the panel, and we talk about it. All right. Well, bear in mind, anybody can come on my panel. They don't invite me to their shows. That's why I got to make flyers and call them out and call them as liars. Because these guys, what they do is they lie for their beliefs. You don't need to lie. You don't need to lie, Yara. Black people just need to stop lying to black people. He teaches that Ola Uda Equiano comes from Igbo land because of Paul Lovejoy's information. But y'all gonna watch this video and tell me if I destroyed him or he destroyed me. I'm gonna stop the video at times, but it was funny. But check it out. He came on, jump on. I got all this information. I got my slides. I'm ready to go. Let's hear him. Let's hear him out. Let's go.
Indicates North American, the Carolinas, as his place of birth. So if his birth certificate says he was born in the Americas in North Carolina, then how is Equiano saying he was born in Nigeria or among the Igbos? That's the crux of Coretta's argument here, family. Anything you can read that goes against what Equiano has ever said comes from this guy's narrative based on the fact that he's saying he has a birth certificate that he was born in North Carolina versus him saying that he was born in Equiano saying he was born in Nigeria. Now watch this. I'm going to skip down through this for the sake of time to show y'all where this has been debunked, where it makes absolutely no sense. Now Garfield's familiar with this guy when it comes to Equiano's research, but he never brings it out. Paul Lovejoy, the Department of History, he's not a white guy. He looks white, but he's African. He's African American. Professor, he's Canadian American, I should say. I'm sorry, Canadian, African Canadian, Afro Canadian. Professor Canadian, Canada Research Chair in African Diaspora History, distinguished research professor of the Royal Society of Canada. Right? Y'all go look him up, and he gives you a breakdown on Equiano's true history, and he goes into Coretta's research and debunks it. And the same information where Garfield bases his whole argument against Equiano on is based on Vincent Corretta. Paul Lovejoy destroys it. Let me show you, right? This is Paul Lovejoy, right? You want to say we don't research, we don't know how to research? We got you, fam. The issues of motivation, Vassal, Equiano, and Coretta's critique of the evidence. Not some fly-by-night made-up story or innuendo or hypothesis. We're destroying Coretta's critique of the evidence that Equiano presented. Now watch this. It's Issues of Motivation, right? By Paul E. Lovejoy. Watch this. In his assessment, Vincent Corretta, which is where Garfield gets all his arguments from against Equiano, almost states that Vassal was born in South Carolina. Almost, because once again, he does not actually say it. In my opinion, Vassal's claim to an African birth should be accepted. But Corretta argues that the evidence does not lead to that conclusion. Does that mean Corretta believes he was born in South Carolina? Apparently not, for he still considers the evidence for and against his assertion of an African birth is ultimately inconclusive. In other words, Corretta can't prove it or disprove it. And this is where Garfield gets his information from when it comes to Equiano, family. And this is all to my Israelite brothers that's out here. Anytime somebody brings up that Equiano argument to try to get y'all off of it and say it's debunked, it's a lie. Nothing's been debunked about Equiano. Not a single shred of evidence. Watch this. The evidence is more conclusive for this historian than for Corretta. And as a literary critic, this scholar has gone a lot further than Corretta, seems to think in assessing the text and the context. Although Corretta rejects the idea that Vassal might have been born in Africa, he refuses to be pinned down on a Carolina birth. Is there another alternative? Coretta's interpretation is not historical reconstruction, but a nod towards it doesn't matter. That's his whole argument. It don't matter where he was born at. So he gonna, again, this is Garfield loving to take the narratives of people when they give their origin, their oral traditions, and say all your oral traditions doesn't matter. Really? Really? Garfield never brings any evidence, people. Everything Garfield presents on any topic is inconclusive. Inconclusive. He always said there's a consensus of scholars. There's no such thing he can show you on a consensus of scholars when it comes to this information. In order to have a consensus of scholars, there needs to be a convening group of people across interdisciplinary studies, not just anthropology, not just DNA, but across all aspects of fields of study that come together with the meeting of the minds and then agree on one conclusion. That's how you get a consensus of scholars. The consensus of scholarship is not based on a majority vote.
All right, I'm sorry. I had to walk away for a minute. But tell me what, I know I missed a good bit. It sound like we got something going on here right now. Right. All right. No, go ahead. Just go ahead and wrap your part up, and then I'm going to see. Yeah, then I'm gonna see what if Alan wanted to add something to that Equiano, and then see if Alan if Abe could stomp on Garfield a little bit. I see Abe just jump back on.
I don't necessarily respond.
Yeah, you don't get to respond to him, but wait a minute, it's okay. You can be on the road for a minute. It's okay. You used to running a muck on Tynetta. He want to run a muck on Tynetta, Sylvia. That's what's going on here.
Right. Let me get the coffee ready. You gonna get a body.
Let me finish.
Go get the coffee. I'm gonna put Garfield in the back. Man, he want murder on my channel. You already know the face was listening. Man, you want bodies on my channel. Go ahead, bro. Finish. That's that Jamaican shuffle he trying to do. Go ahead and finish up.
So watch this. Coretta's interpretation is not historical reconstruction, but it nods towards it doesn't matter when it does matter. Vassal was born somewhere, and the historian has to make an assessment, while some literary critics may not think this is essential. Coretta argues that Equiano indisputably suppressed the records of a South Carolina origin when he decided to publish the reconstruction of his life. In this interesting narrative, Vassal did not mention his baptismal record, which he may or may not have known about, nor did he explain why he enlisted on the Arctic expedition in 1773 with a declared Carolina birth. Although he does provide considerable detail about both his baptism and the Arctic, the claim to a South Carolina birth apparently served a purpose at one time in his life, but was in fact not correct and therefore not worth mentioning in his autobiography. There is no proof that Vassal or Oladawu Equiano tried to hide these documents, let alone suppress them, other than Coretta's imagination. Coretta explains the motive for Vassal's alleged fabrication of evidence as an abolitionist plot. According to Coretta, the abolitionist movement required precisely the kind of account of Africa and the Middle Passage that Vassal supplied. For this reason, Coretta asks if Equiano suppressed accurate records of a South Carolina birth and invented an African birth because of obvious abolitionist and financial records. Now watch this. Whether the author of the interesting narrative of Equiano should be referred to as Equiano, it means nothing. He was born and how he was related to a place of birth. The choice of names also relates to how scholars want to perceive of the author on the one hand, and now the man himself presenting himself at the time on the other. It is argued here that the author of the interesting narrative used in his birth name, Oladawu Equiano, as proof of his African background, not as a name by which he wanted to be known, Gustavo Vassal. Hence, the dilemma is why scholars refer to him by his African name when he chose not to do so. It is suggested that the use of the birth name has more so to do with politics of representation and political correctness. So this had nothing to do with Equiano or Gustavo Vassal. And if you really read on Gustavo Vassal, he did a lot of important work in the abolitionist movement to free Black slaves. He did a lot of important work. He wasn't just somebody who was just out here writing on any type of thing to try to prove a point or make something up, because it was too easy for them to go back and trace where he came from. And I'm going to tell you this. When he goes back and he's left with two sisters, right? I'm going to see what he's found here. He's left with two sisters because I got a lot of information here that Garfield really don't want his work on.
Oh, wait, hold on. No. Hold on a minute. I already pulled the screen down. Hold on 1 second. I see look like you changing the screen in there. Hold on 1 second. Alan, you good. You don't even need the help in none of this, right, Alan?
Alan can come on and interject if he like to.
No. The brother is correct.
All right, now, Alan, you know you got to get you some. Them headphones is acting up.
This is the last part I want to get to right here, because this destroys anything he's talking about, right? And anybody that wants to say, oh, he learned Jewish customs from somebody else or he heard it from somebody else, watch this. Equiano spent the next years being a servant to Pascal's cousins. That was his last, in 1763, that was his last slave master, right? He spent years being educated. By Pascal's cousins, the Guerian sisters, Guerin, right? These were devout Christians. They were devout Christians. These were not Jewish people. They were devout Christians. They were not teaching him Judaism.
Let me ask everybody out there a question. Does being a Christian stop you from reading about the Old Testament and a chosen people? I hear people make this argument all the time. How do you think the people in America, in Africa, and the Native Americans got this whole idea of being Jewish? They got it from Christian missionaries saying that these people are the lost tribes. So being a Christian doesn't stop you from knowing what the Jewish tradition is. It's in the Bible. This is like one of the dumbest things. And what happened is we're so obsessed with our stolen identity, because we're George G.M. James wrote Stolen Legacy. The real stolen legacy is African Americans trying to be Jewish. That's the real stolen legacy. We need to have Stolen Legacy part 2, 3, 4, and 5 with people like Yara's face on the front page. Trying to steal a Jewish people identity. This is what Equiano, I hate to do this to Equiano, this is what he was doing. He was stealing an identity too, trying to make Igbo Jews. Craziness.
So where did he get it from? From memory, from his life as a child. There's no evidence. Nobody set him down and taught him any type of Jewish religion or taught him from a Torah.
Hold on a second.
In 1763, at the end of the war.
Doesn't the Bible include the Torah? What is wrong with these people? Why do you have to be a Jew? Why? He was trying to make his own black people special. This is what he's doing, which I would have done too. So I don't wrong Equiano. I want my people to be special too. I heard about these Jews, and then he lied on sources. So when he says, where would he have gotten it from? I'm literally going to point out where he got it from when I present. It's crazy. So he wants to keep this Equiano lie going. Remember, Equiano is the one that says he's from South Carolina. He doesn't use the name Equiano until the same year his book came out. So this name Equiano is a new name that was made up. Because remember, Gustave Vassa, there's a very important history about Gustave Vassa, if you know who Gustave Vassa is, as far as his travels and so forth, who that person that they named him after, that person, actually Equiano couldn't have gotten a better name, Gustave Vassa. This is why on his autobiography, he puts Ola Uda Equiano, also known as Gustave Vassa. He's given his ancient name, his name, that his slave master's name, all the props in the world. Come on, Yara. You're better than this, man. You're better than this, bro.
Pascal had promised to free him. He broke this promise and sold him to the captain of a slave ship. He was sent back to the West Indies and sold to a man named Robert King, who took him to Georgia. They took him to Georgia. He dreamed of his freedom. Robert let him work to be free. And in 1766, he had saved enough money to buy the papers needed to make him free. And then he went back to England.
All right, hold on a minute. I'm going to close the screen up right here. Hey, do you want to touch on that? Do you want to touch on that? Because Garfield ready to go. Abe, you there?
I have a question before Garfield starts going.
Go ahead, Abe. I don't know where he at. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So earlier it was touched on that.
Come on, Israel. I'm putting a link out there. Garfield up against Rose right now. This your shine. This your time right now. This your time right now. Go ahead. Go ahead. J-Man.
Earlier was pointed out that he definitely mentioned Kunta Kinte. And I didn't get to ask because Garfield said something about Kunta Kinte. I don't know if he meant that the whole story of Kunta Kinte being fake or if he meant something else. But I was going to ask, did not Kunta Kinte pass down his traditions that he learned from his father to his daughter, and they passed it down? That's how Alex Haley was able to learn about his
ultra in the movie Roots
his tree.
From his his
lineage.
You want me to respond to that, beloved?
No, not yet. Garfield, wait a minute. I hate when people get a new Glock. They just ready. They just looking for their own resistance. Calm down. Calm down.
I don't interrupt people. I'm the #1 interrupter. I don't do that. But I'm going to tell y'all this right now. He took 27 minutes a while ago.
I done vacuumed the whole, I done did a whole bunch. I don't know. Why are you busy clocking? Oh, man. Hey, yo, I see we got a hater. Garfield, you do it. Don't worry. If your 15 minutes is going to equate to his whole 27. Don't worry. Hold on, Jay Gun land your plane because Garfield ready.
Yeah, that's the question I had for Garfield, and the other gentleman can answer because I guess I'm contending that if Kunta Kinte was able to pass down his traditions, I don't understand. I understand about slaves being beaten and being forced to accept certain ideology. I get that. I totally get that. But they still
you don't remember seeing no Judaism in the movie Roots. That's what you're saying. That's one of the kind of.
No, I'm not even basing it on Roots. I'm just saying were they not able? How come they weren't able to pass down some of their traditions, to somebody? Because Kunta Kinte passed down some traditions, and that's how Alex Haley was able to trace his roots. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. All right. All right, Garfield. Ain't nobody saying nothing. You don't want to question nobody, right? I'm gonna pull your screen up. Everybody could just to prevent anybody from any button in. We gonna put them all, Israel, all in the back. Go ahead. You got the flow.
All right. First and foremost, you just got set up, bro. You just got set up and you fell for it. You know I don't believe Equiano is born in America, born in Africa, man. You know I don't believe that. But I did say I was being deceptive a while ago with my response because I wanted to hear what you were going to come with. And I'm glad I did that. Hey, ladies, this is so funny, man. This is why Garfield is the most dangerous man. You must have never saw my response to these two guys. All right.
Now you're gonna question him. You want me to bring him? Okay. Okay.
Get rid of him.
No. Go ahead.
Educated on this issue. All right. And by the way, Alex Haley settled a lawsuit with that. We're not sure where he got the story from because he stole somebody's story.
With the plagiarism, yeah.
So just for the brother who had asked a very important question saying, if that guy remembered his tradition, why wouldn't the Jews or Israelites remember? Because they weren't Israelites. They were Muslims, and some of them were converted on the ships to be Christians and so forth. All right. So he said the records is funny with Equiano, right? Ladies and gentlemen, this is the primary from the church. Guess whose name is on there? Gustavo Vassal, number right here, above 11. You see Elizabeth or whatever, husbands or whatever. You see Gustavo Vassal, black, born in Carolina, 12 years old. Who did they get that information from? And remember, Gustavo Vassal said he was 12, but he was born 1745. So he was literally 14 years old at the time. He lied about his age. This is what people don't realize. This guy's been lying from he was a baby. From a baby. But let's look at it some more now. Gustavo Vassal, 12 years old. All right. Let's look at the muster roll now. Because remember, in his book, he told us he was on a ship. He said he was on a ship with his friends, and the date matches up with the actual ship. This ship right here in 1773 in his book, he wrote the same exact date, 1773. And guess what? Who was on the racehorse? You can't see clearly, but the third line, South Carolina, he's 28 years old. His name is Gustav Weston. That's how he signed his name. How do we know this is Gustav?
Remember, the brother said that we have no evidence. He claimed that he was born in South Carolina. Well, this is evidence. This is a primary source. So Coretta, whether we agree with Coretta, and I've read Lovejoy's argument and everything.
Gustav Vassal, because there were only 3 Africans on the ship, or 3 black people. The 3 black people, and this is from his book, by the way, he talks about going on the racehorse. So we know this records is true, right? So we know it's Gustav Vassal because 2 of the guys there said they were from Africa. So he didn't have any fear of being an African because guess what? He declared on the ship he wasn't from South Carolina. Now, ladies and gentlemen, watch this now. Remember this. When he's on this ship saying he's from South Carolina and he's 28 years old, remember, he's free at the time. He's not a slave. So he could say, I'm Oliada Equiano at the time. But he never chose to do it because he made the whole thing up later on. We're going to get to that.
Hey, let me say this. Right here, I could have just stopped. He said he was born, it was Gustav Vassal. He's 28 years old. Very intelligent guy, been on many ships, read a lot of stories, read a lot of scholars. The guy is top of the top. Now, let me give a shout out to Truth Storian and Rawborn, because the debate that I had with Reggie, I wasn't as equipped as I am today, but although I still won that debate, we did something called 24-hour scholarship, where we compile all these sources within 24 hours, and they just gave them to me. I had to remember them and debate Reggie, because I wasn't equipped to deal with Equiano. Equiano, I read some of his book, but I didn't read all of his book. So shout out to Truth Storm, because he made me read all of his book. Once you read the whole entire book, you're like, it's either you're reading a Spider-Man story, a Superman story, or some type of story. This story is just not real. But within the story, you find some very interesting things that I just have to bring out in the public. And of course, Equiano is the reason why I'm here in America today. He fought for the rights of black people. He started the Sons of Africa movement, and he started the whole abolitionist movement indirectly and directly. But he's one of the reasons why you have freedom, justice, and equality for black people supposedly today. But I'm telling you, he did some good things, but he also did some horrible things. I'm just telling the story. All right. If you look at this right here, it says the muster book, the muster roll, Racehorse 1773. In my slides, I show the book. In his book, he says in 1773 he was on the racehorse. So he was actually telling the truth and the same up to the year. So he was on point. So he's telling us that he went on this ship. But on the ship, guess what he did? He signed Gustav Weston. How do we know that it's Gustav Vassal? Why did he sign his name Gustav Weston? Because, remember, there were only 3 black people on that ship, and the other 2 identified as Africans. So you can't say maybe Ola Oda Ekwela didn't want to identify as an African. The other 2 black guys on the ship identified as Africans. So it wouldn't be a problem to identify as African, and they were also free. So as a free black man, he told the story that he was born in South Carolina. Nobody's forcing him. He's not forced. There's no gun to his head. He's not a slave. He's a free man. So he's telling you where he's from. All right. Let's move on. Let's carry on.
That in a minute. All right. Now watch this, family. He asks a simple question. He said, Garfield, why would he lie to say he's a by the way, this is his will in 1797. Why didn't he, and this was after he declared he was Equiano, why didn't he change his will to Oliada Equiano? Why didn't he write his will in that name? You see, this is the problem. This is the problem. My brother, you want to believe that Equiano is a Jew to try to strengthen your argument. You and the whole Yahweh war machine are a bunch of jokes. This is why I'll debate you anywhere, anytime. You just got set up, bro. I just proved to the world that he said he was from South Carolina. So who do we believe? Do we believe the story or do we believe what he wrote? Watch this now, family. Watch this. This is why Garfield is the best at what I do. This is his marriage certificate, 1792. After he claimed he was Equiano again, he's marrying this white woman. He forgot to tell y'all he was a white lover. He wanted to be white. Did y'all know that Equiano wanted to be white? Before my brother kicked me off the show for proving this point that he wanted to be white, I'm going to show y'all something carefully from Equiano. Equiano, when he became 28 years old and he was on the ship, did you know that he helped his doctor friend to go and buy slaves when he was free? Did y'all know that? This is y'all Israelite guy, right? Did y'all know that? Uh-oh, it's in his book. Chapter 11, he tells you. He said one of the things he regrets is being a slave master, helping his guy get slaves from Jamaica, and he said he got his fellow men from Igbo land. But this is why.
I hate Alton.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, why was Equiano so smart? This is a map of everywhere he's ever traveled on a ship. This is why they said all these books were on ships that he read. But I'm going to get to what he said earlier on Mosquito Island and all that stuff, all right? Now, ladies and gentlemen.
Equiano had a white one. No. This is a question.
Equiano had a white wife.
Just good enough.
Don't kick me off, bro. Please don't kick me off because I'm going to teach this crazy guy today. Don't debate Garfield ever. Watch this, family. He says, look at his comment. What does it have to do with him being from Nigeria? Now, watch this, family. Why did he remove that he was an Igbo from his book? Watch this. Watch Garfield. This is why, let me tell y'all, leave Garfield alone. This is Equiano. His first edition of his book, he wrote that, yes, I'm an Igbo. Now, ladies and gentlemen, how could my brother?
I got to stop the live stream because here's a lie that he's telling. He's telling a lie that she was a mulatto. She was not a mulatto. That is a lie. Where did you get that from? You see, this is what happened. We don't like to be wrong. So because Garfield says, hey, she was white, he now has to say, oh, no, she wasn't white. She was, ladies and gentlemen, this was one of the craziest relationships because remember, this is in England. England was one of the most racist country at the time. So remember, America wasn't as racist. America got their racist ways from out of the British. That's who they got it from. So now when you look at the wife of Equiano, let me bring this up on my slides real quickly. This guy here is a joke, man. This is a joke. Why do we have to lie to win debates? We don't have to lie. We ain't got to lie. To lie for what? Why are we lying? You don't have to lie to win a debate about Equiano. Equiano is a very important guy, yes. But we don't have to lie. What is the lies for? Let me just show y'all something real quickly. Suzanne Cullen. And let me just show this right here. He said that she was a mulatto. Yeah, my bad, family. My bad. Let me do this real quickly. Look at this right here. This is Susanna Cullen, right? Susanna Cullen was Gustave Vassal's wife. She was a what? An English woman of what? Of Scottish descent, whom he apparently met on his book tour in Cambridgeshire in 1789. She subscribed to the 1790 and 1791 editions of his autobiography and may have been introduced to him by another subscriber named Peter Pickard. Susanna came from humble beginnings. Her parents, James and Anne, were people of moderate means and came from the cathedral town of Ely, also in Cambridgeshire. Her marriage was apparently seen as a respectable union despite Vassal's former enslaved status. They were married on April 7, 1792, which Vassal announced in the 5th edition of his autobiography. The marriage was also reported in London newspapers such as Gentleman's Magazine, So, family, it's obvious that if she was a mulatto, it would have been mentioned. But I think I have some more information regarding her what do you call it? Hold on, let me see if I find it. This boy love him some white woman, man. Love him some white woman. Love him some white woman. What? If you scream too hard at a white woman, he might have a headache, man. He be mad at you off of that. But anyway, let's get back to my brother Yarah real quickly here. All right, let's get back to Yarah. Yarah. Here you go.
How could my brother, my big brother who I love so much, Brother Bereed, and nobody don't love Bereed more than me. I love Brother Bereed.
We got Black Line Supreme at the bottom.
All right, because Bereed taught me a lot about masonry and all the connection. He taught me a lot. Now watch this now. My big brother Bereed, if Bereed writes his life story and Bereed says, I am from Queens, New York, and he write 9 editions of the same book.
Bear in mind, I'm on Brother Bereed's channel. Shout out to Black Line Supreme because he supported me, and Savior was there. But outside of those 2 from Dagger Squad days, the rest of the people are Bible believers. They are Christians and some are Hebrew Israelites, claimants. This is not hometown for Garfield, but look at the comments at the bottom. Look at the comments. Look at the comments.
Oh, it's in his book. Chapter 11, he tells you. He said one of the things he regrets is being a slave master, helping his guy get slaves from Jamaica, and he said he got his fellow men from Igbo land. But this is why.
I hate Alton.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, why was Equiano so smart? This is a map of everywhere he's ever traveled on a ship. This is why they say all these books were on ships that he read. But I'm going to get to what he said earlier on Mosquito Island and all that stuff, all right? Now, ladies and gentlemen.
Equiano had a white one? No. This is a question?
Equiano had a white wife.
No.
Don't kick me off, bro. Please don't kick me off because I'm going to teach this crazy guy today. Don't debate Garfield ever. Watch this, family. He says, look at his comment. What does it have to do with him being from Nigeria? Now, watch this, family. Why did he remove that he was an Igbo from his book? Watch this. Watch Garfield. This is why, let me tell y'all, leave Garfield alone. This is Equiano. His first edition of his book, he wrote that, yes, I'm an Igbo. Now, ladies and gentlemen, how could my brother, my big brother who I love so much, Brother Bereed, and nobody don't love Bereed more than me. I love Brother Bereed. All right? Because Bereed taught me a lot about masonry and all the connection. He taught me a lot. Now watch this now. My big brother Bereed, if Bereed writes his life story and Bereed says, I am from Queens, New York, and he write 9 editions of the same book. Now, you have to be honest with yourself, believer. Why would Bereed say in the 2nd to the 9th edition, why would he remove Queens that he don't come from Queens no more? Why would
all of a sudden.
Why would you do that? He removed Igbo because he was not an Igbo and he lied. So he had to change it because the Igbo community in England, and if you ever debate me live, bro, I'm going to bring out the information, show that Igbo was beaten up on him. How you going to put out that you from Igbo? Why he put it out? Because he was selling information to the people. He was the first. Bro, I went to England last year. I got the pictures of his publishing house. He's the first black man ever to publish his own book. He funded all of this. He made millions off of this book. Now watch this now. Watch this, Bereed. He removed Igbo from his book. Why? Let's take a look. See? He says he's from Fruitvale. It's named Isaka. Where is Igbo at? He removed it. Here's another edition from his lifetime. The 2nd edition. Look right here. See? Fruitvale, in a charmed Fruitvale named Isaka. Where is Igbo? He moved it. I was born in the year 1745, situated in a charming fruit vale named Isaka. He removed Igbo. Here's another one written by.
You always have ignorance around us every time we're around. Hugh Dixon said, but I thought you said it didn't say it. The first edition says Igbo. He removed it from the 2nd to the 9th edition. So look at his question now to doubt Garfield, because of course, this is another Hebrew Israelite claimant. So he has to ask these questions. They can't believe Equiano made this whole shit up. Watch this now, family. He was the first black man ever to own his own publishing company. When I went to England when I was promoting my book, I literally went to where his publishing company was, took pictures. He's a legend. He got all the royalties from his books. He's the first man ever to do that. Black man. You know what they thought about the first is? So he put out all the editions. Just like how they came before Columbus had 19 editions. Why would a book have 19 editions? You had to make all these changes over and over 19 times. He had 9 editions, y'all. 9. And he took Igbo out. So when we say he's Igbo and he's saying all these things and scarifications with his father and all this stuff, he heard this from the British Igbo communities. This is why he had to remove Igbo, because when the book came out, he had to remove it. Let's stop playing games because we want people to believe that people came over here that was Jews. Let me just say this carefully, family. And you're going to see more in this dialogue how I would even claim him if I was an Israelite. I wouldn't even claim him if I was an Israelite today. I wouldn't claim Equiano.
By himself. Where is Igbo? Gone. I put 7 editions here. None of them have Igbo. He's from Igbo anymore. Not one of them. So you want to claim he's Nigerian? Why is it that he took it out his book? You can't deny the facts. Go to Hattitrust right now and you could download all the editions of his book from 2nd to 9th edition. You can't do that because even if you want to say he's from Nigeria, why are you hiding? Why are you taking that out of your book, bro? That's the book you wrote. I'm from such and such in the year 1745 from Isaka. By the way, nobody has been able to find Isaka. Nobody. Now watch this, family, and this is very important to everybody who wants to know what's going on here. Let's go to slide number 24. Now he said, how
long Garfield be on? I gotta put my timer on because I want Israel to come on here. I'm on Israel's side. Y'all already know that right now. I gotta see their response to this right here. I got 3 of them. I got 3 brothers in the back right now. Go ahead, Garfield. You talk your talk.
Email says,
I'm getting hate mail messing around with Garfield.
Why did he was Jewish? Okay.
It's been about 5 minutes. 5 minutes, I believe.
5 minutes.
That's all. Okay, all right, go ahead.
Because the daggers coming so hard, oh my God, they want to take me out. Time. He said to y'all, how could he know he's Jewish? How could this guy know he's Jewish? Did you know that he teaches that the Jews were white? Did y'all know Equiano taught that the Jews was white? Did y'all know he painted his face white and went to court to
Hey, yo, Garfield, I was just joking before. You can't come back on here. You can't come back on here talking this craziness.
But I'm going to show the primary. It's in his book. If you read his book, you would have seen this. They don't read his book. But watch this. Watch this, Brother Marie, because I'm going to show the primaries. Watch this. He's saying, the manners and customs of my countrymen and those of the Jews before they reach the land of promise, and particularly the patriarchs. Right? This is from his book. At this point, Equiano weaves into his discussion the biblical commentaries. He said, how he know about Jews? Why is he reading John Gill's commentaries and John Brown and Arthur Bedford? This is how he knows about religion. He cites these writers in order to present as their confirmation of his casual impression what is actually a well-scripted, thoughtfully orchestrated argument designed to persuade the reader that the Igbo are derived from biblical, specifically Jewish ancestors. In his autobiography, in other words, these commentators seem to confirm what has long struck him as more than coincidental similarities between the Igbo and the Jews. Equiano gestures toward Dr. Gill's commentary on Genesis to note how it is that the Jews were white. Did y'all?
Let me pause this dagger for a minute. People want to know where he got it from. The dude was so intelligent. He was reading the top scholars of the day on biblical commentary. So he didn't know about Judaism. Oh, he got it from when he was a youth. No, he didn't. So what he did, family, and you're about to hear me read it, is he quoted scholars and said that they said that they were white or that the Igbos come from the Jews.
Y'all know Equiano thought that the Jews was white? Did y'all know he painted his face white and went to court to...
Hey, yo, Garfield, I was just joking before. You can't come back on here. You can't come back on here talking this craziness.
But I'm going to show the primary. It's in his book. If you read his book, you would have seen this. They don't read his book.
Oh,
but watch this. Watch this, Brother Marie, because I'm going to show the primaries. Watch this. He's saying, the manners and customs of my countrymen and those of the Jews before they reach the land of promise, and particularly the patriarchs. Right? This is from his book. At this point, Equiano weaves into his discussion the biblical commentaries. He said, how he know about Jews? Why is he reading John Gill's commentaries and John Brown and Arthur Bedford? This is how he knows about religion. He cites these writers in order to present as their confirmation of his casual impression what is actually a well-scripted, thoughtfully orchestrated argument designed to persuade the reader that the Igbo are derived from biblical, specifically Jewish ancestors. In his autobiography, in other words, these commentators seem to confirm what has long struck him as more than coincidental similarities between the Igbo and the Jews. Equiano gestures toward Dr. Gill's commentary on Genesis to note how Gill aptly deduces the pedigree of the Africans from the descendants of Abraham. John Clark and Arthur Bedford's scripture chronology. He informs the readers both corroborate Gill's findings. Now watch this.
Shout out to BLS, man. Miss my brother, man. Come back to the Dagger Squad, brother. He said, leave Garfield alone. Listen to what he's saying. Leave Garfield alone. Watch this now. Let me kill this some more. Shout out to my brother Unc in the building.
A careful study of Equiano sources, however, reveals that none of these commentators actually claim that Africans are descendants of ancient Jews. He made that up. And then he used the sources to say that they claim that the Africans come from Jews when it was all him.
So hold on there. Unc say what? A pseudo dies at their source. So Equiano, you didn't know that people was going to fact check you years later. You made the shit up, bro. Them scholars ain't say what you said they said, bro. They ain't say what you said. So what you going to do? Equiano made it up. So when you talk about why would he make up that he's a Jew and where he learned this from, the Igbo community in Britain at the time knew Equiano. He heard stories and traditions from them. He read hundreds of books while he was traveling on ships. He was more qualified, more intelligent than most of the slaves that you know. He worked on a ship. And if you look at the travels that he had and the books that he read, oh man, I got a source I got to show y'all, man, where the person documents that when you read his book, he's quoting these books within his books. Y'all ain't no God. Yo, listen, man, shout out to True Historian. He ain't go as deep as I did with Equiano, but he put me on the path to understand what he was doing. And plus, I don't want to disrespect Equiano because, again, I'm on YouTube, I'm in America, and I'm free. And Equiano played a part of role in that. So I don't want to throw Equiano into the wolves like, you know, Equiano. No, I'm not on none of that. I'm just saying we have studied Equiano, and Equiano's claims is suspect, bruh. It's suspect. And these are what African scholars are saying. This is not what Garfield is saying. This is what African scholars are saying. Then he's going to quote Catherine Ocholano, the lady that talked about the Sumerians are Africans or or the Igbos come from Sumer, or the Sumerians come from Igbo. She's a crazy one, man. That even Asari Motep has said, yo, she makes shit up. He said she made shit up. He said when he checked her sources don't say what she said they said. That's crazy. So when Ochaluna, yo, bruh, I got so much stuff on this narrative, yo. Bruh. Truth, I'm here looking at what Truth Story gave me originally back 7 years ago, and how I studied this deep. I had to go deep into this because this was one of the arguments that Israelites used to make, to say that these people are Israelites, that Equiano is proof. So I had to go in and cook it up. Cook him, right? Right, Morpheus? I had to go cook him up. Now listen to the rest of this craziness. Let me pull it back a little bit so y'all could listen to this again. Everybody said how he would know that they're Jews. The dude made it up. He made it up. That's what we do.
But I'm going to show the primaries. Watch this. He's saying the manners and customs of my countrymen and those of the Jews before they reach the land of promise, and particularly the patriarchs. Right? This is from his book. At this point, Equiano weaves into his discussion the biblical commentaries. He said how he know about Jews. Why is he reading John Gill's commentaries and John Brown and Arthur Bedford? This is how he knows about religion. He cites these writers in order to present as their confirmation of his casual impression what is actually a well-scripted, thoughtfully orchestrated argument designed to persuade the reader that the Igbo are derived from biblical, specifically Jewish ancestors. In his autobiography, in other words, these commentators seem to confirm what has long struck him as more than coincidental similarities between the Igbo and the Jews. Equiano gestures toward Dr. Gill's commentary on Genesis to note how Gill ably deduces the pedigree of the Africans from the descendants of Abraham. John Clark and Arthur Bedford's scripture chronology. He informs the readers both corroborate Gill's findings. Now watch this. A careful study of Equiano sources, however, reveals that none of these commentators actually claim that Africans are descendants of ancient Jews. He made that up. And then he used the sources to say that they claim that the Africans come from Jews when it was all him. Because he wants to assign himself to be a Jew for a purpose. So he had to lie. You ain't going to Equiano like me, bro. Watch this. The claim is Equiano's exclusively. But because Equiano anticipates that his readers will likely reject any interpretive creativity on his part, he attributes the biblical commentators who are familiar to his English readers to claim that the Igbo nation is of Jewish origin. So he's trying to say that these authors said that, but they never did. It is true that English biblical commentary commonly identified Africans as descendants of biblical characters, but not the ones whom Equiano suggests. Equiano.
Ladies and gentlemen, listen to this. Listen to this carefully. The dude saw somebody and said the person said that the Igbos are Jews. The reason why he's doing it, family, because he wants to uplift the African race. He wants black people to look like they're high in society more than slaves. That's why he's saying that. Look at what he's doing. Remember, this is in his book. And he's trying to present why we should not be enslaved. This is why I said that he is the reason why I am free in America right now. So shout out to him. He lied for a reason. He made it up for a reason. That's why he did it, to prop up black people. So what's a better way to prop us up that make us associated with the people who are considered chosen? So the Igbos are Jews. That's it. So you should treat us differently, because as black people, we shouldn't be slaves because we're also chosen people. So that's the purpose of what he's doing. Yo, listen, man. Come on, man. Man. Shout out to Equiano, because his story led to a lot of things. Yeah, it's a good move. Let's go.
Claim that descendants of the biblical Hebrew patriarchs eventually made their way to West Africa, producing the Igbo nation, a people whose religion bore, in his estimation, clear evidence of Jewish origins. Watch this. Equiano anticipates, hold on it, employs, da 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 da. All right, now watch this now. Remember I said that he said that the Jews were white originally? He employs subtle ironic maneuvers to explain this enigma of white-skinned ancestors producing dark-skinned peoples in Africa. Why would he want to explain why white-skinned people now are dark-skinned? He's trying to imply that the dark-skinned people in Africa come from white people. Watch this. He announces that this difference of color between the Igbo Africans and the modern Jews is a problem beyond his abilities to explain, and for which he feigns not to bear a solution for his readers. Despite this self-abnegating posture, however, explain if he does, Equiano cites two instances of Europeans, Spanish and Portuguese, settling in torrid equatorial lands and over a few generations becoming as dark-skinned as the peoples indigenous to those regions, the latter producing perfect Negroes, as he says. It is clear from the context of his discussion of the Portuguese, however, that these perfect Negroes resulted from intermarriage between white settlers and Native Americans. Not me, my brother, Yara.
Hey yo, oh.
Right. Hold on, my brother. What? Igbo Africans and the modern Jews is a problem beyond his abilities to explain, and for which he feigns not to bear a solution for his readers. Despite this self-abnegating posture, however, explain if he does, Equiano cites two instances of Europeans, Spanish and Portuguese, settling in torrid equatorial lands and over a few generations becoming as dark-skinned as the peoples indigenous to those regions, the latter producing perfect Negroes, as he says. It is clear from the context of his discussion of the Portuguese, however, that these perfect Negroes resulted from intermarriage between white settlers and Native Americans. Not me, my brother, Yara.
Hey yo, oh.
Right. Hold on, my brother. What did Equiano sources actually claim about African origins, and how did Equiano incorporate them into his argument? I'm not going to go too deep into this. Y'all got to watch my channel for that part. But I do want to go to my next slide, which is 2446. 2446. In his same book, Equiano's life story, and I'm going to prove to y'all that he wanted to be white. I whitened my face that they might not know me, race and identity in Oleada's Equiano slave. How many of y'all knew that he went to court and dressed up as a white man? How many of y'all knew that? How many of y'all knew that? The powerful underline this striving not only to be perceived as a rational, capable, and intelligent black man, but also as a human being of moral virtue and standing on equal ethical terms with Europeans. When he arrives in England in 1767 as a free man, his desire for self-confirmation is translated into a deep-seated determination not only to imitate his former white masters, but even resemble them in any way. Now watch this and read with me now. Screenshot this. I now not only felt myself quite easy with these new countrymen, but relished their society and manners. I no longer looked upon them as spirits, he's talking about white men, but as men superior to us. He's saying white people are superior to us, and therefore I had the stronger desire to what? Resemble them. To imbibe their spirit and imitate their manners. I therefore embrace every occasion of improvement, and every new thing that I observed, I treasured up in memory. He wanted to be white so bad. Is this why he went to Jamaica and got slaves? For his...
Garfield love them people. Garfield doing too much right now. Somebody said Uncle Ruckus doctrine. Garfield doing too much right now. Garfield doing too much right now. All right, Alan, Abe, who want to come on here first? Garfield doing it. Yo, Garfield.
Hold on one second. Please give me...
Hello?
No, hold on. Go ahead. What, Garfield? What?
Let me finish, please. I'm asking you. I'm begging you. Please.
You've been riding for about an hour, man.
No.
I know. My man timing it. Don't worry. Y'all better go. You don't worry. When you get up here, when you Israelites get up here, y'all better talk that talk.
All right. Now.
The type of one if y'all think Garfield giving them that work. I'm talking about from what y'all see on screen. I'm hearing stuff about Equiano. I can't lie. I didn't know.
Now watch this. Look at this white girl now. This is page 49 in this book from the 1789 edition. This mate had a little girl, about 5 or 6, with whom I used to be much delighted. I often observed that when her mother washed her face, it looked very rosy. But when she washed mine, it did not look so. I therefore tried oftentimes myself, if I could not by washing make my face of the same color as my little playmate Mary. But it was all in vain, and I now began to be mortified at the difference in our complexions. This woman behaved to me with great kindness and attention and taught me everything in the same manner as she did her own child, and indeed in every respect treated me as much. All right. Hold on there 1 second. I got 3 more.
My sister said this is nothing but white supremacy. She said you pushing white supremacy because oh man, yo, I can't call it white supremacy. Because he's sharing this right here, I can't call it white supremacy, because one thing is being overturned or to debunk don't mean automatically it's lifting up the blonde hair Aryans. Don't think that for 1 second.
Okay, now why?
Don't feel enough, brother, enough.
Why did Equiano make up?
This dude is hard-headed. This dude is hard-headed.
Hold on. Why did Equiano make this up? A lot of people don't know that Thomas Clarkson and this other guy had a bet that he could produce some guy that was a slave that could write about what actually happened on the slave trade. Did y'all know that? These 2 white men had a bet. They made Equiano. Thomas Clarkson made him. He found one black guy before who wrote a narrative, but the narrative didn't have somebody who was actually on the slave ships. So there goes Equiano. Watch this. Why might Equiano have created an African nativity and disguised an American birth? Before 1789, the abundant evidence and many arguments against the transatlantic slave trade came from white voices alone. Both opponents and defenders of the trade recognized the rhetorical power an authentic African voice could wield in the struggle. In an essay on the slavery and commerce of the human species, Equiano's future subscriber.
All right, good. They call it golf.
Hold on. Let me finish this point.
And then you getting out, bro. You got to go.
Yeah, I know. The future subscriber, Thomas Clarkson, acknowledged the desirability of hearing the victim's point of view. Clarkson dramatized the transatlantic slave trade by placing such and such and such. But anyway, let me move to the next one. Gilbert Franklin, an apologist, later responded to Clarkson in an answer to Reverend Clarkson's essay. He said, horrid picture of West Indian tyranny and brutality, and this is drawn upon the authority of people whose names Mr. Clarkson ventures not to produce. He says, I challenge Mr. Clarkson to produce a single man of decent character who ever gave him such an account. I do not mean a gentleman. I do not mean even a white man. I defy him to produce a Negro of character who would not turn pale in fabric. They need somebody to assume that there's Jewish identity. Marine, the Jewish identity is what he made up with John Gill's work. John Gill and them wrote in their commentary that Africans, like they would talk about Moses' wife, and said Moses' wife that he had was a Canaanite woman or Ethiopian, and said that she's African. That's what they would talk about in their commentary. So that's the African connection that these guys with the Bible commentaries are doing. What Equiano did was he used them and said they said that Igbos are Jews. That's what he did in his book, which is a lie. So that's how he's making this connection, because Jews are chosen. So as a Christian, he must have read the Bible. He reading John Gill. Nobody in that time period was reading John Gill Bereen. That's like reading some of the top scholars, Bart Ehrman and Richard Carrion of today. So he's reading top scholars about Christianity and Judaism. So at the end of the day, that's where he made his error, because the people who read those works knew they weren't talking about Igbos. So that's how he made a connection with Igbos and Jews. Then he said the Jews were light-skinned. So he said the Jews were white. He explained it that they slept with African women. That kills Yara completely. He's saying that the Jews were white in his own writings. How much more do we spell it out for you? That's being totally disingenuous.
He lied, and you'll never be able to show he said that. And I dare you to pull that source up. You just lied.
Right now.
Can I share my screen, Berean? Can I share my screen, Berean?
I've been waiting for you to share your screen. It ain't up here yet. Before Sister Sherry even up, I thought you said you were going to.
The sister was talking. Watch this. When he talks about his family, right? Watch this. I'm going to show y'all what he knows about his family. This is why Garfield is a liar.
Go ahead.
Watch this. Let me get it from my let me get it from here. And I got to pull this up, right? A lot of when it comes to the Israelite community, most of the attractions, especially to Israelites in America, Black Israelites in America, the biggest, that there are no blacks, no culture, and start calling themselves Jamaican.
Do you have the book beside you, bro?
They're Igbo names.
The question is, does he know Equiano's parents' names?
Yes, okay, that's what we're trying to get to that right now.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. No, I'm talking about. Try to say is there's absolutely no way that this is possible, that they never existed.
The marriage certificate, his name is on there. The will, the name is on there. He didn't change.
Sherry, go ahead, J Mac. What was the order, J Mac?
Yeah. Time's up. Sherry got a question or comment.
Gives us this that there are no blacks.
It's addressed to the whole panel if you guys want.
It's a very good question.
The entire Israelite community. It's addressed to the whole panel if you guys want.
It's a very good question.
Well, go ahead, anybody. She said the whole and plus in the comment section.
A lot of when it comes to the Israelite community, most of the attractions, especially to Israelites in America, Black Israelites in America, the biggest argument the biggest arguments that it holds is that there's no evidence pre-colonial times, pre-colonialism, right, or before the slave trade, that anybody, or during the time of the slave trade, that there are no blacks, no black or West African slaves that had any connection to Israel in the Americas, or claiming to be of Israelite culture in the Americas. Gustavo Vassal, or AKA Oladapo Equiano, in his own words, in his own eyewitness accounts, gives us this evidence, right? That he himself is the evidence, that their narrative that says that there's no evidence connecting Black Israelites from the west coast of Africa in the Americas anytime during the slave trade or any material culture that existed. That's important. That's important to the narrative, not just the only one, but it's important to the narrative of quote unquote Black Hebrew Israelites in America, right? And those that profess a connection, because what they try to say is there is absolutely no way that this is possible, that they never existed, right? Even in anything that in the Hebrew Israelite community is a Black person, that we have no connection, and that what we're trying to do is acculturate someone else's culture. We're trying to take over someone else's identity, much like those who claim to be Jamaican took over the Tainos culture and started calling themselves Jamaican when that's not even a African word. They stole an identity, like Garfield. His family stole an identity, but they walk around calling themselves Jamaican because they were born in their land. Don't worry about it. No, I'm talking about history. Are you a Jamaican?
If you want to talk about,
are you a Jamaican? Are you a Jamaican?
Hold on, Barry. Hold on a second, Barry.
I know the truth hurts.
Why are you bringing up my family?
I know the truth hurts. I didn't say nothing about your family. I said you're a Jamaican.
You said my family.
I said Jamaicans. Jamaicans stole a culture. Stop being sensitive. I wasn't talking about your. I wasn't talking about your.
All right, hold on. Yeah, we're not your. Yeah, Dutch don't address his family specifically, but we don't want to get off of the subject of Equiano. She asked specifically why, and he was explaining that. We ain't got to blow shots at Garfield. He was asking you about the you know Equiano wife and all of them. You know their wife and them name while she was going to get your man.
So I asked Yara a question, right? And the question was, do you know Equiano's mother's name? This is something that me and Truth Story and we didn't talk about, but the source that he gave me said to me, it is kind of weird you're writing a story about your life and you don't mention your mother's name, your sister's name, your brother's name. Not one of your names is in his autobiography. So what Yara did, because this is why I said black people stop lying to black people, I asked the question, do you know the mother's name or the brother's name or the sister's name? He said, yeah, it's in his book. So watch what happens when I say that. This is why I decided to add this to the element of black people stop lying to black people, just to try to be right. Stop lying. Now look at this now.
No, the question is, does he know Equiano's parents' names?
Yes, okay, that's what we're trying to get to that right now. Yeah.
Is he asking me, do I know Equiano's parents' names?
Yes, correct.
I don't recall his mother and father's name, but I know he gives their names in the book. I don't recall it, but he does give their names. If anybody reads his book, their names are in there. And guess what? They're Igbo names.
Bruh. Yo, I'll give anybody in the audience a cash app of $500 if they could tell me what Igbo names did they have in his book. There's no names. He made that up. Why is he lying though? You ain't gotta lie. For what? What are you lying for? To win a conversation? We ain't gotta lie to each other. We try to build. We having a conversation that's very friendly. All of a sudden, all Jamaicans are fake because they call themselves Jamaicans, getting personal, taking personal shots. The question is, what's his mother's and what's his parents' name and his sister's name? Let's go back and listen to the lie again one more time. So nobody says I'm bearing false witness. Where's Hugh at? Let's go.
Bringing up my family.
I know the truth hurts. I didn't say nothing about your family. I said you're Jamaican.
You said my family.
I said Jamaicans. Jamaicans stole a culture. Stop being sensitive. I wasn't talking about your. I wasn't talking about your.
All right, hold on. Yeah, we're not your. Yeah, Dutch don't address his family specifically, but we don't want to get off of the subject of Equiano. She asked specifically why, and he was explaining that we ain't got to blow shots at Garfield. He was asking you about the you know Equiano wife and all of them. You know their wife and them name while she was going to get your mail.
The question is, does he know Equiano's parents' names?
Yes, okay, that's what we're trying to get to that right now. Yeah.
Is he asking me, do I know Equiano's parents' names?
Yes, correct.
I don't recall his mother and father's name, but I know he gives their names in the book. I don't recall it, but he does give their names. If anybody reads his book, their names are in there. And guess what? They're Igbo names.
For the record, there's no Igbo names of any parents in the book. It's a lie. Plain and simple. But again, we want to act like we know everything and we can't say, I don't know.
Okay.
Why you know what? Do you have the book beside you, bro?
They're Igbo names.
I want you to tell me his father and his
I just told you I don't remember, but are they or are they not Igbo names, Garfield?
What's his family?
He's not going to answer my question.
Hold on, brother. We don't want to get...
I'm going to prove that he's a fraud. He doesn't mention his father's name, his mother's name, his sister's name.
You just threw that out there.
He doesn't know his sister's name.
This dude is a fraud.
Let me show you. Let me pull up my screen. Let me show my screen and tell you. Let me show you my screen.
You're a liar.
Screen right now.
You're a liar. That's what.
Hold
share
on,
my
Garfield,
screen.
hold on.
Out,
Let me share my screen right now. Hey, I got him, Berean. I got him. I got him, Berean. Berean, I got him. I got him. I got him, Berean. I got him, Berean. I got him.
All right, so the
try to say is father's name, but I know he gives their names in the book. I don't recall it, though. He does give their names. If anybody reads his book, their names are in there. And guess what? They're Igbo names.
Okay.
Why? You know what? Do you have the book beside you, bro?
They're Igbo names.
I want you to tell me his father and his
I just told you I don't remember, but are they or are they not Igbo names, Garfield?
What's his family?
He's not going to answer my question.
Hold on, brother. We don't want to get.
I'm going to prove that he's a fraud. He doesn't mention his father's name, his mother's name, his sister's name.
You just threw that out there.
He doesn't know his sister's name.
This dude is a fraud.
Let me show you. Let me pull up my screen. Let me show my screen and tell you. Let me show you my screen. Let me show you my screen right now.
You're a liar. That's what
hold
you're
on,
Let me share my screen right now. Hey, I got him, Berean. I got him. I got him, Berean. Berean, I got him. I got him. I got him, Berean. I got him, Berean. I got him.
All right, Sister Cherry, come on and finish your statement.
Yeah, Garfield, can I ask you a question?
Go ahead, sister. Anytime. Go ahead, sister.
Are you gonna coming off the slave ship?
Connection that these guys with the Bible commentaries are doing. What Equiano did was he used them and said they said that Igbos are Jews. That's what he did in his book, which is a lie. So that's how he's making this connection, because Jews are chosen. So as a Christian, he must have read the Bible. He reading John Gill. Nobody in that time period was black was reading John Gill, Berean. That's like reading some of the top scholars, Bart Ehrman and Richard Carrion of today. So he's reading top scholars about Christianity and Judaism. So at the end of the day, that's where he made his error, because the people who read those works knew they weren't talking about Igbos. So that's how he made a connection with Igbos and Jews. Then he said the Jews were light-skinned. So he said the Jews were white. He explained it that they slept with African women. That kills Yara completely.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me just say this. If we're having a conversation and I'm wrong, I don't know. It's no big deal. But Yara, come on, bro. You ain't got to lie, bro. You ain't got to lie. You ain't got to lie. No, 93, she was asking me about a debate, upcoming debate. That's all she was asking. Let's get to the next video now. We got to get to the next video. Brother Garfield claims none of the Bible prophets are credible. I must say, with all due respect, first thing I'm going to say to Yara, right? First thing I'm going to say is this. There is not one, and this is not a disrespect to you as a Bible believer, for those who are listening, there's no such thing as prophecy. There is no such thing as prophecy. Prophecy is a literary device that's used by governments at the time in the ancient Near East to bring people closer to the leadership, whoever is in charge, to make them feel more special. And then they would falsify prophecies. Look at what's the guy name? I always mention his name. All of his prophecies came true. Does that mean I should follow him? This is a gentleman that deal with math. I forgot what is the Greek guy's name. All right. But I'm gonna get to, again, I just proved that Yara lied. So I didn't make it up. And everybody does. Everybody in the audience agree that Yara lied when I asked him about Equiano's parents and his sisters and his brother's name. It's not in the book. Do you guys agree that Yara lied? Put a 1 in the chat. If you believe Yara didn't lie, put a 3. If you know he lied, put a number 1 in the chat. Put a number 1 in the chat. All right. Sunshine Shawnee, long time. What's up with you? Let me get to this right here.
Move even by the academics and the so-called scholars. We're not moved by them as well, but we're going to talk about some things today.
All right, let me get Yara on here. Let me get Yara in here. Biblical Prophecy of Historical Proportions, lecture and author by Yarah ben Nazar. Now, go ahead, Yarah. Explain what you're explaining. Okay, here we go.
We good, family. All right. So let's see. Right. Let me see if you guys can see where it says it's showing the book, The Failure of Biblical Prophecy by Chris Sandoval. The Failure of Biblical Prophecy by Chris Sandoval. Can you guys see that slide? I'll even try to make it bigger if I can, because I really want y'all to understand, the intellectual dishonesty that goes forth, right, in this community, right? So here, and you guys put a one in the chat again, just for me, just to confirm that you guys can hear me. Somebody put a one in the chat. I appreciate it. Let me know that you can hear me clearly.
I got the book. I got the book.
Can at least try to see. Brother Whitson Payne, peace and blessings to you, fam. Thank you, Brother Tone. I really appreciate it. Somebody put a one in the chat. Thank you, FS Drake. You're great. So again, here what we see is, this is what Garfield, the day that I was on his show about a week ago, when he was talking about, again, I think he was doing the same thing for the last 2 weeks, talking about Hebrew Israelites or one West is dead. I don't necessarily disagree with the premise on that based on the tenets of that particular doctrine, but I won't say that it's dead, right? But I will say this, right? When you're talking about his premise that there are no biblical prophecies that are credible, this is the information that he used. I want y'all to understand that. This is the information that he used and where he got that argument. I'm not saying he got it all from here, but this is one of the sources that he used. The Failure of Biblical Prophecy by Chris Sandoval. Now, what I want you guys to really pay attention to on this slide is that the full title of the book is The Failure of Biblical Prophecy, a Skeptic's Review of the Evidence. See, the moment you see that term or someone uses or refers to themselves as a skeptic, you know you're dealing with fringe theory, aka pseudoscience. This is strictly his opinion. It's not based on historical fact. But this is the information Garfield attempted to use to discredit the Bible and the prophets as not being historical or not having any historical context. He uses a skeptic's work. That right there is an epic fail, family, because he's not using a consensus of scholarship. He's not using academia, and he's not using any archaeological, which I'll have a conversation about archaeological evidence anyway, right? But it can't always be used as solid evidence at times. But what you have is that he's reading from a person who's a self-described fringe theorist or a skeptic or pseudoscience. So this is why I laugh all the time when I hear people like Uncle West talking about, we're pseudo, but we're skeptics. But you guys are pseudo, but we're skeptics. The understanding even of itself, skepticism is based on fringe theory. It's based on pseudoscience. It's based on pseudoscience. And so this is what
get to the point, man.
Chris Sandoval says in the work that Garfield used the day that I was on his show.
Okay, let's go.
I respect him. Honestly, I do. I respect him. I really want to believe that he said that Egypt was never conquered, right? I believe that's what he said. But it's based on one of the prophecies in the biblical narrative, right? I appreciate you, Sister Mika. So in Isaiah chapter 19, verses 5 through 23, it deals with Necho the second, who was a king of Egypt from 610 to 595 BCE. We have a historical record of Necho II outside of the Bible. We find his archaeological print in extra biblical sources outside of the Bible. We could talk about Necho II without using the Bible. We know he existed, right? From 610 to 595 BCE, he attempted to aid the Assyrians against the Neo-Babylonians, but ultimately failed, leading to the Neo-Babylonians defeating Necho's troops at the Battle of Carchemish, right? And forcing their withdrawal from Syria and Palestine. We have the archaeological records to prove that outside of the Bible. But this is what's being addressed in the historical context in the prophecy of Isaiah in chapter 19, verses 5 to 23. They're dealing with this exact incident, this exact occurrence in secular history. They're dealing with this, right? Isaiah is dealing with this in his prophecy, right? So Necho II's reign, and Necho II was a pharaoh of the 26th dynasty. He ruled Egypt from around, again, 610 to 595 BCE. One of the things we have to consider was during the Assyrian decline, during Necho's reign, the Neo-Assyrian Empire was declining and the Neo-Babylonians were gaining power. We know this. We have the extra biblical sources. The Bible also agrees with this in Isaiah's prophecy when you're dealing in Isaiah chapter 19. The Assyrian campaign, Necho was seeking to support the Assyrians, so he launched a Syrian campaign in 608 BCE. His purpose was to aid the Assyrians against the Neo-Babylonians. We're going to go a little bit further, right? So in Isaiah chapter 19, verse 23, we have what we know of the Battle of Megiddo. Now, let's take this into what we have in the historical record. There is not much, if not at all, anything to confirm the Battle of Megiddo outside of Isaiah chapter 19, verse 23, right? But what we do know is this, right? So while marching north, Necho's forces clashed with Josiah. Josiah was the king of Judah. Do we know that Josiah existed as a real king of Judah? Yes, we do. He is named in extra biblical sources outside of the Bible, who was allied with the Neo-Babylonians at the Battle of Megiddo. You find that in the historical context of Scripture, Isaiah chapter 19. Josiah's death, Josiah was killed in battle. We don't have an extra biblical source for Josiah being killed in battle, not to my knowledge. We don't have that in the extra biblical source. That information only exists in the biblical narrative. And it says, and Necho installed his own nominee,
For the record, just for point of clarification, there's no archaeological evidence for King Josiah as a person. There's none. It don't exist. What we have is an official that's mentioned in 2 Kings of one of Josiah's officials, but we don't have any evidence that Josiah actually existed as a person. Yara, I'm not going to accuse you of lying, but if you do have evidence that you could provide that Josiah existed as a king, please provide it. All right, because I know you're going to want to respond to this video. If you notice, he made a video. He never told me he was making a video. I don't need to invite him or whatever. But my link is in my chat. Anybody can jump on my live stream. I don't need to shadowboxing. Shadowboxing is good, but I like to have conversations because I like to prove people a liar in their face. And if you notice, when I did my show about the prophecy, Yara was on the panel. He never disagreed one time. But he decided to make a video behind my back and make a video about it on his channel. I guess he had some like, oh, I don't agree with this, da 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 da. But why didn't you say anything while he was on the live stream? You see, this is the problem. You want us to believe that we are Israelites based off of faith. No, F faith. We are wasting our time jumping into a faith that has nothing to do with us. It's not a part of our culture. Most of us are West and Central Africans. The best you could claim is Muslim, because at least we know Muslim slaves came over. There was Muslim slaves that came over to the Americas. We know that. We know Muslim slaves went into the Jamaica. We know that. We got people performing different holidays on slave plantations, proving that they're Muslims. So we could say that we're Muslims. You know, some of us can. But at the end of the day, we're pretty much West and Central Africans who practice West and Central African culture. That was brought over. Most of the slaves went to Brazil. You have over 5,000 different Maroon communities. And every time they look at the Maroon communities, they're practicing an admixture of Yoruba and Roman Catholic religion. So let's get to this. Let's get some more to that. And I don't want to call it what he did when he talked about Equiano and his mother and his father's name in the book. That's a lie. He never read that. He made that up. That's a lie. But when he says Josiah is a real king who can prove it in history, I would have probably made a mistake like that. So I'm not going to call him a liar for that, just to be fair. All right? Let's get to the rest of the argument now.
Took him as king of Judah, who would serve as an Egyptian ally and vassal. We do know in extra biblical sources that Judah was a vassal state or became a vassal state to Egypt. We know this occurred, right? And we know this was a long-standing relationship. How do we know that? We can look at later on, we can look at Taharka and Hezekiah, right? King Taharka, who we know was an Egyptian pharaoh, Egyptian king in the historical record. We do know he existed. We do know we have the boule or the signet ring of Hezekiah that shows the seal of Taharka, right? Many of you have seen it. It's a little round little seal. It has a B on it, and it has the Aramaic writing, right? Or biblical Hebrew writing on it, right? That is not to say that the Israelites were really Egyptians. No, that's just showing their vassalage, that they were a vassal state to King Taharka. So we know that this relationship occurred because we have archaeological evidence to support it, right? So now we get to the siege of Haran, which we know clearly is expressed in the Bible. We know that's a historical city, but let's deal with it. So Necho continued his march north to the Assyrians and retaking the lost capital of Haran. But the siege ended in a failure as an attack on the Babylonian and Median forces led to the defeat of the Assyrians and the Egyptian forces. The biblical narrative gives us this clearly. We know this occurred in extra biblical sources, right? We know this happened. Somebody put a one in the chat. Sister Mika says she can't hear me. Somebody put a one in the chat if you can hear me. She just removed that. So maybe she can. Somebody please put a one in the chat because I don't just want to be talking. Thank you. I appreciate you, Mika. Right? Thank you, General Yashar. Thank you, Mika. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Right? Let's go to the next one. Thank you, General Yashar. Here's some of those boule signet rings. And I'm telling you, now we're talking about Isaiah's prophecy in Isaiah 19, specifically around verse 23, and the archaeological record that exists. Remember, I told you we do have some connection with King Josiah, right? Watch this. So Josiah instituted major religious reforms. They refer to it as Josiah's reform, right? And it is out of Josiah's reform later on in my research.
So hold on a second. So he does admit what I said earlier. Josiah is known only from biblical texts. No reference to him exists in other surviving texts of the period, and no clear archaeological evidence has ever been found. But he said earlier, we have an archaeological record. So you do know that there's no archaeological evidence for Josiah. So that is a lie. That is a lie. He lied earlier. He lied earlier then, because now he's correcting himself.
Research. This is where we get those who wound up in Elephantine, right? Those Elephantine Jews that people like to talk about all the time, down in Elephantine, in Egypt, and Aswan, right? In those areas. That happened, in my understanding, out of Josiah's reform, right? So Josiah instituted major religious reforms, right? One of the major religious reforms was, in the Bible, it tells us that Josiah removed the Asherah pole out of the temple, as well as a donkey's head that had been placed in the temple by kings of Judah that had did evil in the sight of the Most High before Josiah came to power. So when Josiah came to power, Josiah says, no, we're going back to the old ways of our forefathers who were righteous and get the Asherah pole out of there. Now, mind you, an Asherah pole is not a female deity. The Asherah pole was not a female deity, right? The Asherah pole was more like a totem pole, right? We see the Indians, the Native Americans, I should say, that they would have these totem poles. So the Asherah pole was much like that. I'll show you that at a later date, right? But that was part of Josiah's reform. Josiah got rid of all of that. The scripture tells us, and those that did not agree with his reform left. They left because they still wanted to worship and practice those things. So they left. And these were Judeans that left. So it is those Judeans who left during the time of Josiah's reform who I believe came into Elephantine and Aswan, and then they were they asked to build a synagogue in Elephantine, right, or a temple. Exist in other surviving texts of the period from Egypt or Babylon. And no clear archaeological evidence. Really slow. Okay. Now we're going to go to Isaiah chapter 17, verses 1 through 3. And this is where we deal with the prophecies on the destruction of Damascus, in which Garfield says never occurred, right? Which he says never occurred.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is an outright lie. If I'm saying that the prophecy, let me read exactly what I said regarding Damascus. You know, in Damascus, right, the prophecy says, the prophecy's destruction of Damascus, which some interpret as fulfilled in its devastation by the Assyrians in 732 BC, though others believe it's a prophecy for a future yet to be fulfilled event. I accept that Damascus was destroyed. The issue is the text says it would be destroyed. The city would be destroyed forever. That's what I was talking about. Stop lying and listen. Yo, every time I don't know, man, Hebrew Israelites, there's something wrong with their listening capabilities. Anyone who claims to be an Israelite in the Western world they just can't hear. I remember when Mika sent this to me, I said, Mika, what is he talking about? I never said that. So you're arguing a straw man, because I never said that. I said that the place was destroyed. That doesn't mean it's a prophecy, because you can't tell when it was written. You don't know when this book was written, because you don't have no primary. It could be written after the fact, which it possibly was. But at the end of the day, they write and say the Yahweh did it. And if you read it from another culture, the Assyrians will say, dear God, Ashur did it. So which God did it? Was it Ashur or Yahweh? Everybody's going to say their God is the one that did it. It's not a prophecy. It's retroactive writing. So if it happened 732 and Isaiah wrote around the turn of the 8th century, around 700 AD, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? This whole conversation don't make no damn sense. Crazy, man.
So
wasting my time on a Friday evening.
There it is, right? So in Isaiah chapter 17, verses 1-3, it prophesies the destruction of Damascus. Some interpret it as the fulfillment in its devastation by the Assyrians in 732 BCE, which this is during the time that the prophet Isaiah would have lived. Though others believe it is a prophecy for a future yet to be fulfilled event, right? You got what preterist? You got I'm going to say preterist. What is it? Is it preterist and pre-preterist or whatever? You know, something like that. Some believe everything in the Bible, all the prophecies in the Bible have been fulfilled. Some believe in that there are dual prophecies that exist. Some believe that there are prophecies that were given that haven't occurred yet because they're future prophecies, right? But the question on the table, is Garfield's claim correct that no biblical prophet can be deemed credible because you can't find any of their prophecies in the historical record outside of the Bible? So the prophecy in Isaiah 17 verses 1-3 states that Damascus, a major city, will no longer be a city, but will become a heap of ruins. That is the prophecy, Garfield.
This is how stupid we are. Listen to what he just said. If it's supposed to be destroyed, states that Damascus, a major city, will no longer be a city. So how is it a city today? If the prophecy is true. You just killed your whole... I can't listen to these guys. They are a waste of time. It is ridiculous. It is the writer using hyperbole. That's all he's using. This city will no longer be a city, but will become a heap of ruins. So how is Damascus? How does it exist today? These guys are idiots. Hold on a second. Let me find the actual prophecy and bring it up so that people could look at it. It's crazy. Prophecies and sources. Let me go to here. Let me go to Isaiah. Who is it again? Who is it? Isaiah. Let's go to Isaiah. This is all over the Bible. People are making prophecies and the prophecies don't come true. So how do you decide if a prophecy is right? Let me just show you all this real quickly with Isaiah. Isaiah 17, 1-2 tells us that Damascus would be laid to waste and it will remain uninhabited forever. Damascus is currently the capital of Syria and has a population of approximately 1.5 million. But it is remarkable that the words forever are completely absent in the Masoretic text, whatever. But the point is, how could it be laid to ruin forever or going to be gone forever? Or as his source says, it will no longer be a city. So how is it a city today after this destruction? So that's a false prophecy. People are just writing. They're just writing. It don't have to be true, bro. It don't have to be true. But anyway, let's carry on.
That's the prophecy. That Damascus, a major city, no longer will be a city, but will become a heap of ruins. Thank you, Sister Cassandra. I couldn't pull it up. Preterist. Right. Partial preterist. Absolutely. Thank you, sis. But let's look at what the historical context says. What does it tell us in history? Right? That the Assyrians under Tiglath-Pileser famously besieged and destroyed Damascus in 732 BCE. Isaiah prophesies this. I don't know what Garfield is really trying to get at by dismissing what we know what the Bible says historically in context with the prophecies of Isaiah and Damascus versus what we see in the historical context. I think he was trying to harp on this word destruction. Destruction doesn't mean completely wiped out, Garfield. Destruction can mean ruin. Destruction can mean, as we see in ancient Kemet, they call them intermediate periods where there's either a change of power or authority or economic collapse. That can be a destruction. But they try to play, again, this dishonest, like 3-card monster.
The link is pinned. Anybody want to jump on and explain to me what this means? I'm trying to figure out, what did I say? I said that it's an issue with it no longer being a city, and it's a city today that has over 1.5 million people living there. That means you can't say the prophecy happened. 478-927, 478-927, 478-927. Ah, man. All I gotta say is, what else you got for me, Yara? This is just sad. Anybody want to come on and teach me what he means? Because this is just a waste of time. I don't know. Anybody want to come on and deal with this? Because this is a complete waste of time. First, he's misquoting me. He's not even saying what I'm actually saying. Then now it's a whole nother issue with what happened, what actually happened. Come on, we gotta be better, family. We have to be better. We have to be better. We have to be better. When was it open? Okay. Yeah, we have to be better. I don't know, Yara.
With the information, they want to swing it around. Yes. There's no credible prophets in the biblical narrative, right? Exactly, Brother Winston. King's bow hanging above the richly decorated horse's back, right? This once stood. That's what Ezekiel chapter 26, verse 4 is saying. That Tyre would be a place for the spreading of nets. Which tells us, Brother Garfield, that it's being prophesied by Ezekiel that Tyre would be underwater. It was not at his time, but he's prophesying that it would be underwater and people would be fishing where Tyre once stood. That's what it's saying. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, would build a siege wall around Tyre. This is in Ezekiel chapter 26, verse 8. Nebuchadnezzar would plunder the city. Ezekiel chapter 26, verses 9 through 12. The stones, timber, and soil of Tyre would be what? Cast into the sea. That goes with Ezekiel chapter 26, verse 4, where it says, and Tyre would be a place of spreading of nets. It would be underwater. Here it is, reinforced again in Ezekiel's prophecy, Ezekiel chapter 26, verse 12. Verses 9 through 12. It says, the stones, the timber, the soil of Tyre would be cast into the sea. Ezekiel 26, verse 12. The city would never be rebuilt. Ezekiel chapter 26, verse 14. That's Ezekiel.
You know, I didn't talk about this that day, but just to let the brother know, right? With Tyre, you have to be very careful because Tyre was not destroyed until Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great actually destroyed Tyre. There was a war between the people of Tyre and for 13 years. This is real history. This is why God said he's going to let Nebuchadnezzar invade Egypt to get the gold and all that stuff, payment for his time at Tyre. Him and his soldiers can get paid. Because remember, they're working for the Most High. They're working for Yahweh, right? So at the end of the day, Yahweh assigns him a job for him to do a job. And the job was to conquer Tyre, which he didn't. Alexander the Great was the one that destroyed the city of Tyre. And that's historical. But I never talked about Tyre that day. I never talked about Tyre. I talked about Nebuchadnezzar and Egypt and why he went to Egypt. I don't know, bro. And Tyre, have an argument for Tyre too, but I never made one. So why are you talking about Tyre and Garfield when I never made one? Oh, boy. Another waste of time. This is so sad. A whole how many hours? What is this now? Let me see what else he has. Okay, the book of Daniel. Let's get to the book of Daniel. All right, let's go. This is absolutely nuts. Nobody want to jump on the panel today?
Tone,
failed prophecy.
Tone 76. I appreciate you, and again, like I appreciate you bringing this back around to my attention. Here we go. I think we should have something bringing this back around to my attention because it is important that these things are addressed, and for the very reasons that you gave. So again, I want to say appreciate you for your earnest and your honest and dealing with this, right? So let me get down. And if you guys can really see out here on the bottom of the screen, you see I put this together back in 2022, about 3 years ago. And that's to deal with this very topics that we're talking about, right? So even though we're doing this in response to me being on Brother Garfield and what he's been doing for at least the last 2 weeks and dealing with Hebrew Israelites and Hebrew Israelism and the prophets in the Bible not being credible, even though we're doing this in response to that, we've been on this information and have had this understanding for at least 3 years. And I want to say I think I might have clipped Brother Garfield and put him in his video when he originally did it, and I'm thinking about it. But let's talk about this, right? Talking about a historical methodology. It's the process by which historians gather evidence and formulate ideas about the past. It is through which an account of the past is constructed.
All right, hold on. Let me deal with one thing real quick, right? In Ezekiel 26, 1-21, Nebuchadnezzar would destroy Tyre. God states that Nebuchadnezzar II would conquer, sack, and completely destroy the city of Tyre, which is Tyre, and that Tyre's land would never be built up again. Now, however, this is what it says I would have. I will bring upon Tyrus Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, king of kings from the north with horses and with chariots and with horsemen, companies, blah, 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 blah. He shall slay with the sword thy daughters in the field, and with his axes he shall break down thy towers. When he shall enter into thy gates, with the hoofs of his horses shall he be thread all the streets. He shall slay thy people by the sword and thy strong garrisons. When I shall make thee a desolate city like the cities that are not inhabited, when I shall bring up the deep upon thee, and great water shall cover thee, when I shall bring thee down with them that descend into the pit. However, this never occurred. After a 13-year siege, Tyre compromised with Nebuchadnezzar and accepted his authority without being destroyed. Despite being conquered and razed by Alexander the Great 240 years later, Tyre still exists. Ezekiel even admits that Nebuchadnezzar failed to conquer Tyre 3 chapters later in Ezekiel 29:18. Look at this. Son of man, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, made his army labor hard against Tyre. Every head was made bald and every shoulder was rubbed bare. yet neither he nor his army got anything from Tyre to pay for the labor that he had performed against it. So, ladies and gentlemen, even in the Bible, they admit that he didn't conquer Tyre. He never destroyed Tyre. So what is it that, I don't know. Why are you bringing these things up? I don't get it. To say that the prophecy happened, but in the Bible it says the prophecy didn't happen. I don't understand. All right, let's get this out of the way.
Constructed. Historical evidence can take a variety of forms. Among the most important types of historical evidence are primary sources, or pasagade, right? Now, Cyrus is mentioned by Isaiah in chapter, sort of end here, because I'm at the top of the 6 o'clock hour, identifying Darius the Mede, right? This is the reason why Garfield goes so hard with this, why he has to dismiss this whole thing about Darius the Mede, because it lends credibility. It lends credibility to Isaiah and his prophecy. It lends credibility to the Israelites. It lends credibility to the biblical narrative in the historical context. So DJ Wiserman gives a more likely solution to the identity of Darius the Mede. He writes this in 1965, right? Pages 9 through 16. Namely, he says that Darius the Mede is an alternative name for Cyrus the Persian. Let me read that again, because Garfield likes to say Darius the Mede was made up, and that the Bible lied when they says Darius the Mede, that they completely lie. It was made up, it's fictitious. No. What the scholars are saying in academia is that Darius the Mede is another name for Cyrus the Persian, or Cyrus the Great. The same Cyrus, King Cyrus, we read about in Isaiah chapter 45. This would entail reading Daniel chapter 6, verses 28 as well, with the marginal reading found in an earlier edition of the NIV in 2011. It says Darius, that is, in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Such a reading is linguistically justifiable and assumes that Darius, a name borne by 3 other later Persian kings, was an alternate name for Cyrus. So here it says that Darius.
Yo, this is the dumbest thing ever, yo. Let me tell you something.
Was a title.
Yara.
That Darius itself was just a.
Yara. You do know the Bible says. I'm gonna tell you what the Bible actually says. If you look, all right, look at this right here. Daniel is supposed to have flourished during the reigns of Darius and of Cyrus, the king of Persia, according to Daniel 6:28. To be identified with Cyrus the Great, according to the narrative in his present form, Darius identified as the son of Xerxes, a descendant of the Medes, was about 62 years old in his succession. These references, which do not conform to what is known of the history of the period, have caused problems for scholars trying to unravel the discrepancies, a work of the Hellenistic period long after the fall of the Archimedes. Family, if Darius, remember, Darius is called the son of Xerxes. Cyrus the Great is not the son of Xerxes. This is simple. This is easy work. You just believe anything any scholar said. Bro, would you just take the time to just read the same book you believe in? The same book says that Darius is identified as the son of Ahasuerus, which is translated as Xerxes, a descendant of the Medes. Ladies and gentlemen, Darius cannot be the son of Xerxes and also be Cyrus the Great. It's impossible. Darius is actually a regnal name. It's a title. If you look up the regnal name of the ark, look at Darius. Let me just Google it. Darius regnal name. His birth name was the Aramaic Kodamanus, which he later dropped in favor of Artashata, when he rose in ranks. He first adopted the regnal name of Darius when he ascended the Archimedes throne. So this name, it's a Regnal name. Darius the Great is the first Darius. And I mean, if you guys ask, I could tell you where Darius the Mede comes from. All you got to do is ask Garfield, can you explain why there is a problem? There's a problem because of the writer is writing 200-300 years later. The problem is we know who Darius the Mede is based off the prophecy. Daniel is trying to make prophecy in Jeremiah come true because he said the Mede shall will, and Isaiah 13 talk about the Mede shall defeat the Babylonians. That's the reason why they read the prophets and tried to make the prophecy come true. So ironic, we're talking about prophecy. But Darius the Mede, and I just pointed out, cannot be Cyrus the Persian or Cyrus the Great, because Darius in the Bible, it says Darius is his father. Darius is not Cyrus his father. We know that on record. Bruh, you done. What's the next point? What's the next topic? What's the next topic? Ridiculous, man. And then you talk about the same shit over and over and over. And I'm saying, oh my God, this guy here, man. Oh man. He get to the prayer of Nabonidus. Okay, all right, we know about that. What else? He compares the two. Okay, so he has a part 2. Let me get to the part 2 and see what he's talking about. What is he lying about again? These guys, man, these guys. I don't know why they even make videos more time. Fiction, fact or fiction, Brother Garfield. So he's back. He has to make a part 2. Let me make a part 2 so I could get Garfield some more. Get him. You get back to Daniel now. Here we go.
All right.
Daniel.
I'm going to start it here. And you see the title, Sister Cassandra. I really appreciate that. That helps me a lot. So again, we talked about the Nabonidus prayer or prayer of Nabonidus, and I showed you the actual fragment of that prayer, and it's titled or coded as 4Q 242, and 4Q 242 stands for fourth cave. The fourth cave. Q stands for Qumran, so the fourth cave in the Qumran desert where it was discovered, and this is the 242nd fragment or document or manuscript that was found and cataloged. 242, right? Fragment 242 as it was found and recorded, the prayer of Nabonidus. So 4Q242 is the fourth cave in Qumran. That's the Q. Documented fragment 242. And it's entitled The Prayer of Nabonidus, right? So the following Aramaic text belongs to the famous Dead Sea Scrolls, right? So this is where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, right? In the Qumran Desert. Now, you have many people tried to come around and say, even in this community, and say that the Dead Sea Scrolls are inauthentic and they're forgeries. Well, what happened is sometime, I believe in the 60s, someone forged a number of documents, right, and sold them to a museum, right? And the curators or the persons that were responsible for vetting the documents did not do a very good job in vetting them. So they purchased these forged documents, right? And they put them on display as documents from the Qumran caves or parts of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Well, when the actual professional
Yo, Hugh Dixon, why don't you jump on? So Xerxes the First was the grandson of Cyrus. How could he, Darius' father, how could Darius, who is Xerxes the First son, be Cyrus the Great? So you just answered it. Are you going to put in the chat that Yara lost his mind? Thanks for proving my point, young man.
Critics came in to look at them, the experts in who study actual fragments and fragmentary pieces of ancient documents. They noticed right away that they could not be actual documents from the Qumran cave. Why? Because the ink was different, and it was a new mixture or a new type of ink, a more modern type of ink, something not found with the other ancient Qumran manuscripts and fragments. And so it was a big controversy. Now you have some people who will ignorantly try to deceive and be deceptive, similar to Daniel's account of a king of Babylon who actually take a look at the historical record inside and outside of the biblical narrative. We have him in an archaeological footprint outside of the Bible. Evidence on the mummies of those people. September 6, 2013. You can actually look that up.
Is he arguing that Nebuchadnezzar is possibly Nabonidus? Oh, man. I hope he's not. I'm not. Was Belshazzar a historical invention of Daniel? Oh, man. Who said that? Nobody said that. Okay, what are you saying? Okay, Garfield never made that claim. I'm not sitting there watching this garbage, yo. Okay. 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 All right. Okay, what is he saying? Let me see what he's saying.
From offside net, a TV channel, a good brother. I had to tell him last night. I had a brief conversation with him last night until you blocked me, Morpheus. Right. Be careful who you take counsel from.
All right, let me do this because we got to teach. Darius is Xerxes' pops, or Xerxes is Darius' pops. Okay, I got you. In the Bible, it says Xerxes is Darius' pops. All right, let's go to this website, pocm.info, talk about prophecy. The liver model used by priests to predict the future in Assyria, 18th century BC. Was Christianity new? Pagan prophets predicted the future correctly. You know this if you've heard of the famous oracle at Delphi. Christian ideas about prophecy were identical with pagan ideas about prophecy. The only difference was Christians believed their prophecy came from their one true God, and pagan prophecies came from pagan demons. So here we go. So we got prophecies. Look at this right here. Am I to be sold? Number 74. Am I to be sold? Oh, man, I tell you. Let me show you what's his name. They say all of his prophecies came true. Can't beat that. All of y'all prophecies ain't come true. Let's take a look. Pythagoras. Chances you are think of Pythagoras as the son of a bitch who invented that geometry thingy. Pythagoras was also a guru who founded a philosophy religion, gathered disciples, performed miracles, and made prophecies. Pythagoras had the power of God in him. How do we know this? His prophecies always came true. That's how. Because I'm sure you're dying to know. Here's the Pythagoreans' theology about how prophecy worked. The Pythagoreans are said to have predicted many things, and Pythagoras' predictions always came true. The life of Pythagoras, preserved by Photius, 820 to 891 AD. So Pythagoras, should we all follow Pythagoras, yo? Or all these guys that had prophecy, the Delphi oracles or whatever? This is just what people did in the ancient Near East. 1800 BC, the Assyrians were doing it. Everybody's doing prophecy. It's a part of the literary device by kingdoms. That's what they did. Nothing to be crazy about. Nothing to say, hey, we did this or that, didn't do this or whatever. But if you want to believe that, that's on you. But I already approved through this Yara. I never said anything about Damascus not being destroyed. I never said that. I said it was destroyed. The issue was it destroyed forever? That was the issue. With Tyre, I never spoke about Tyre in the context of the prophecy of Tyre, although I know that didn't come true either. But Tyre was mentioned because of Nebuchadnezzar and whatever. Did you prove Nebuchadnezzar's prophecy came true? No, you didn't. That's the issue. That's the issue. Why did Jeremiah and Berosus work like they had the same type of writing? Because Berosus in the 3rd century BC said the same thing about Nebuchadnezzar destroying Egypt. He said the same thing the prophecy said. So did the writer of Jeremiah have Berosus in front of him? Russell Gamerkin touched on that. Very interesting topic in that chapter of that book. But anyway, family, it's been 2 hours. I don't want to stay long. If anybody want to jump on and challenge what I said, the floor is yours. You got 2 minutes. Let's go. Anything that I said that you disagree with, come on and beat me up. In the meantime,
this is what we're gonna do. Speak the truth, speak the truth. People need to understand this. Straight shot, no, I can't miss. Are you just talking? Never, I do this here often. One of the biggest mistakes you ever can make is disrespecting the greatness. You may have never heard this before. One more for the playlist, tell them what to do. This is what we're gonna do. Speak the truth, speak the truth. People need to understand this. Straight shot, no, I can't miss. Are you just talking? Never, I do this here often. One of the biggest mistakes you ever can make is disrespecting the greatness. You may have never heard this before. One more for the playlist, tell them what to do. Cool, thanks, kudos, real talk, not for the pseudos. Trust the kid, real talk, I debunked the myth, sit still, don't run from this. That's a wise man told me, watch for the fakes and the phonies. You gotta be cautious, listen and open your conscience. People be talking that nonsense, chattering, that's when the daggers are stopping. Okay, this is what we gonna do. Speak the truth, speak the truth. People need to understand this. Straight shot, no, I can't miss. Are you just talking? Never, I do this here often. One of the biggest mistakes you ever can make is disrespecting the greatness. You may have never heard this before. One more for the playlist, tell them what to do. This is what we gonna do. Speak the truth, speak the truth. People need to understand this. Straight shot, no, I can't miss. Are you just talking? Never, I do this here often. One of the biggest mistakes you ever can make is disrespecting the greatness. You may have never heard this before. One more for the playlist, tell them what to do.
Yeah, next Friday, 6 o'clock, we have next.
This is what we're gonna do. Speak the truth, speak the truth. People need to understand this. Straight shot, no.
Yeah, I think I wanted to do Jabari next week, but I'm gonna deal with that. But let's just be realistic. There's not a prophecy that ever came true in the Bible. You have no idea when the Bible was written. You have no idea when it was rewritten. You have no originals, no primers to go by. So you have scholars guessing when happened, when this happened, when that happened. We don't know. We're just guessing. So if you believe a prophecy is coming true, that's on you, bruh. You got to prove that prophecy came true. You can't prove it. None of y'all. So when Yara talk about you going to respond to prophecy, get out of here with that believer bullshit, bro. That's nonsense. Total nonsense. And anytime you want to do that Ola Uda Equiano debate, man, I'm here, man. I'm here. I'm here. Because people have read the book. If you didn't read the book, then you got a chance. But hey, ask Reggie about me. He'll tell you. Black people, stop lying to black people. You don't need to. We don't need to lie to each other to win an argument. Stop, black people, stop lying to black people. And next week, we got this debate coming up. Did Daniel's 70-week prophecy happen during the Greek or Roman time period? Hosted by Christian Corey, Brother Gadal versus Priest Akar. And we're going to get it in. All right? Since nobody want to talk to me today, I want to say peace and love. And we good. And then the following week, I'm going to probably be in Jamaica. No, I'll leave the Sunday. So I probably could have a video the 11th. Yeah. Probably going to replay a debate. All right. So we're going to get it in. All right. Peace and love, family. Thanks for tuning in. Black people, stop lying to black people. Elder Yara, cut it out, bro. It's not even about being on my level as a researcher or whatever. Stop teaching lies. You don't have to lie. We ain't got to lie. You ain't got to lie, Craig. Next Friday. Friday after next. Oh, man. I'm good. I'm good to go, family. Peace and love, man. We out. Peace.